Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club, and we are continuing our reading of the Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And this will be chapter 49. And here we go. Chapter 49, the years 1940 to 1951. We have indeed learned the value of meditation and know that nothing can disturb our inner peace. In the last few weeks during the meetings, we have heard air raid warnings and listened to the explosion of delayed action bombs. But our students still gather and thoroughly enjoy our beautiful service. This brave message, written by the leader of the London Self-Realization Fellowship Center, was one of many letters sent to me from war-ravaged England and Europe during the years that preceded America's entry into World War II. Dr. L. Kramer Bying of London, noted editor of the Wisdom of the East series, wrote me in 1942 as follows. When I read East-West, here's a footnote about East-West, that's a magazine which is now called Self-Realization. When I read East-West, I realized how far apart we seem to be, apparently living in two different worlds. Beauty, order, calm, and peace come to me from Los Angeles, sailing into port as a vessel laden with the blessings and comfort of the Holy Grail to a beleaguered city. I see as in a dream your palm tree grove and the temple in Encinitas with its ocean stretches and mountain views, and above all, its fellowship of spiritually minded men and women, a community comprehended in unity, absorbed in creative work and replenished in contemplation. Greetings to all the fellowship from a common soldier, written on the watchtower waiting for the dawn. A church of all religions in Hollywood, California, was built by Self-Realization Fellowship workers and dedicated in 1942. A year later, another temple was founded in San Diego, California, and in 1947, one in Long Beach, California. Here's a footnote about the Long Beach temple. The Long Beach chapel was outgrown in 1967, in which year the congregation moved to a spacious Self-Realization Fellowship temple in Fullerton, California. Publisher's note. One of the most beautiful estates in the world, a floral wonderland in the Pacific Palisades section of Los Angeles, was donated in 1949 to Self-Realization Fellowship. The 10-acre site is a natural amphitheater surrounded by verdant hills, a large natural lake, a blue jewel in a mountain diadem, has given the estate its name of Lake Shrine. A quaint Dutch windmill house on the grounds contains a peaceful chapel. Near a sunken garden, a large water wheel splashes a leisurely music. Two marble statues from China adorn the site, the statue of Lord Buddha and one of Guan Yin, the Chinese personification of the Divine Mother. A life-size statue of Christ, its serene face and flowing robe strikingly illuminated at night, stands on a hill above a waterfall. A Mahatma Gandhi World Peace Memorial at the Lake Shrine was dedicated in 1950, the year that marked the 30th anniversary of Self-Realization Fellowship in America. A portion of the Mahatma's ashes sent from India was enshrined in a 1,000-year-old stone sarcophagus. Here's a footnote about the 30th anniversary. In celebrating this anniversary, I conducted a sacred ceremony in Los Angeles on August 27, 1950, at which I gave Kriya Yoga initiation to 500 students. A Self-Realization Fellowship India Center in Hollywood was founded in 1951. Mr. Goodwin J. Knight, Lieutenant Governor of California, and Mr. M.R. Ahuja, Consul General of India, joined me in the dedicatory services. On the site is India Hall, an auditorium seating 250 persons. Here's a footnote about the India Center. Nucleus with the adjacent temple, of a large ashram center managed by devotees who have dedicated themselves to the service of humanity and to realization in their own lives of Paramahansa Yogananda's ideals. Publisher's note. Newcomers to the various centers often want further light on yoga. A question I sometimes hear is this: is it true, as certain organizations state, that yoga may not be successfully studied in printed form, but should be pursued only with the guidance of a nearby teacher? In the atomic age, yoga should be taught by a method of instruction, such as the self-realization fellowship lessons. Here's a footnote about that. This comprehensive home study series is available through the international headquarters of Self-Realization Fellowship, the society established by Paramahansa Yogananda for the dissemination of the Kriya Yoga science of meditation and spiritual living. See page 551, publisher's note. Oh, let's do that sentence again. In the atomic age, yoga should be taught by a method of instruction, such as the self-realization fellowship lessons, or the liberating science will again be restricted to a chosen few. It would indeed be a priceless boon if each student could keep by his side a guru perfected in divine wisdom. But the world is composed of many sinners, quote, sinners, and few saints. How then may the multitudes be helped by yoga, if not through study in their homes of instructions written by true yogis? The only alternative is that the average man be ignored and left without yoga knowledge. Such is not God's plan for a new age. Babaji has promised to guard and guide all sincere Kriya yogis in their path toward the goal. Hundreds of thousands, not dozens merely, of Kriya yogis are needed to bring into manifestation the world of peace and plenty that awaits men when they have made the proper effort to reestablish their status as sons of the Divine Father. And here is a footnote about the Kriya Yogi and their goal. So Paramahansa Yogananda also told his students of East and West that after this life, he would continue to watch over the spiritual progress of all Kriyabans, students of the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons, who have received Kriya initiation. See page 351 note. The truth of his beautiful promise has been proved since his Mahasamadhi by letters from many Kriya yogis who have become aware of his omnipresent guidance. Publisher's note. The founding in the West of a self-realization fellowship organization, a hive for the spiritual honey, was a duty enjoined on me by Sri Yukteswar and Mahavatar Babaji. The fulfillment of the sacred trust has not been devoid of difficulties. Tell me truly, Paramahansaji, has it been worth it? This laconic question was put to me one evening by Dr. Lloyd Cannell, a leader of the temple in San Diego. I understood him to mean, have you been happy in America? What about the falsehoods circulated by misguided people who are anxious to prevent the spread of yoga? What about the disillusionments, the heartaches, the center leaders who could not lead, the students who could not be taught? Here's a picture of the Lake Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine and Gandhi World Peace Memorial. Oh, this is the Lake Shrine. And this is the Gandhi World Peace Memorial. Right here. Located in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, California, the 10-acre lake shrine was dedicated on August 20th, 1950 by Paramahansa Yogananda. While supervising the planting and construction work in 1949, Paramahansaji stayed at times in the houseboat, shown in photo at left. I think it's this one here. That's the houseboat. Or maybe it's this one. Anyways, one of these. I think that's a lighthouse. It looks like a lighthouse. Okay, visible between the center pillars in other photo is the carved sarcophagus that enshrines a portion of Mahatma Gandhi's ashes. Across the lake is the Windmill Chapel, seen in left photo. Okay, so this is the sarcophagus with some of Mahatma Gandhi's ashes. And then Windmill Chapel. Where's the Windmill Chapel? I don't see it here. Anyways, seen in left photo. Somewhere here. I wonder if it's up here. Oh, windmill here. That's the windmill, I think. It looks like a lighthouse, but anyways, okay. Self-realization fellowship services, meditations, and classes are held weekly at Lake Shrine, which is open to the public. So here's a picture of it side by side. I'll give it a minute where you could look at it. Very serene and beautiful, isn't it? Okay, continuing. The founding in the West of a self-realization fellowship. Oh, we read that already. Oh, we read that already. Okay. So we finished that. Here's more pictures. At dedication of SRF India Center, Mr. Goodwin J. Knight, Lieutenant Governor of California Center. That's him right here. That's the Lieutenant Governor. And that's Mr. Goodwin J. Knight right there. With Yoganandaji and Mr. A.B. Rose. A dedication of Self-Realization Fellowship India Center. Adjacent to the SRF temple shown below, Hollywood, California, April 8th, 1951. Oh, I think that's A.B. Rose. So Goodwin J. Knight is not in the picture. Maybe he's taking the picture. But anyways. So that's the dedication center, dedication day. Here's another picture. They're dedicating this temple, Self-Realization Fellowship Temple, Church of All Religions, Hollywood, California. Interesting. Okay. Blessed is the man whom the Lord doth test, I answered. He has remembered now and then to put a burden on me. I thought then of all the faithful ones, of the love and devotion and understanding that illumines the heart of America. With slow emphasis, I went on. But my answer is yes, 1,000 times yes. It has been worthwhile, more than I ever dreamed, to see East and West brought closer to the only lasting bond, the spiritual. The great masters of India, who have shown keen interest in the West, have well understood modern conditions. They know that until there is better assimilation in all nations of the distinctive Eastern and Western virtues, world affairs cannot improve. Such hemisphere needs the best offerings of the other. In the course of world travel, I have sadly observed much suffering. Here's a footnote about that. It's a little poem by Francis Thompson. It says, that voice is round me like a bursting sea, and is thy earth so marred, shattered in shard on shard. Lo, all things fly thee, for thou fliest me. All which I took from thee I did not take, not for thy harms, but just that thou mightest seek it in my arms, at which thy child's mistake, fancied as lost, I have stored for thee at home. Rise, clasp my hand, and come. Francis Thompson, the Hound of Heaven. In the course of world travel, I have sadly observed much suffering. In the Orient, suffering chiefly on the material plane. In the Occident, misery chiefly on the mental or spiritual plane. All nations feel the painful effects of unbalanced civilizations. India and many other Eastern lands can greatly benefit from emulation of the practical grasp of affairs, the material efficiency of Western nations like America. The Occidental peoples, on the other hand, require a deeper understanding of the spiritual basis of life, and particularly of scientific techniques that India anciently developed for man's conscious communion with God. The the ideal of a well-rounded civilization is not a chimerical one. For millenniums, India was a land of both spiritual light and widespread material prosperity. The poverty of the last 200 years is, in India's long history, only a passing karmic phase. A byword in the world century after century was the riches of the Indies. Here's a very long footnote about the riches of the Indies phrase. The records of history present India up until the 18th century as the world's wealthiest nation. Incidentally, nothing in Hindu literature or tradition tends to substantiate the current Western historical theory that the early Aryans invaded India from some other part of Asia or from Europe. The scholars are understandably unable to fix the starting point of this imaginary journey. The internal evidence in the Vedas pointing to India as the immemorial home of the Hindus has been presented in an unusual and very readable volume, Rig Veda India, by Abhinas Chandra Das, published in 1921 by Calcutta University. Professor Das claims that immigrants from India settled in various parts of Europe and Asia, spreading the Aryan speech and folklore. And Lithuanian tongue, for example, is in many ways strikingly similar to Sanskrit. The philosopher Kant, who knew nothing of Sanskrit, was amazed at the scientific structure of the Lithuanian language. It possesses, he said, the key that will open all the enigmas, not only of philology, but also of history. The Bible refers to the riches of India, telling us, Second Chronicle 9:21, chapter 9, verse 21 and verse 10. Interesting. That the ships of Tarshish brought to King Solomon gold and silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks, and algum, which is sandalwood trees and precious stones from Ophir, Sapporo on the Bombay coast. Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador, 4th century BC, has left us a detailed picture of India's prosperity. Pliny, 1st century AD, tells us the Romans annually spent 50 million sesterces, which is $5 million, on imports from India, which was then a vast marine power. Chinese travelers wrote vividly of the opulent Indian civilization, its widespread education and excellent government. The Chinese priest Faxian, 5th century, tells us the Indian people were happy, honest, and prosperous. See Samuel Beale's Buddhist Records of the Western World. India was the Western world to the Chinese. Trubner, London, and Thomas Waters on Yuan Chuang's travel in India, AD 629 to 45, Royal Asiatic Society. Columbus, discovering the New World in the 15th century, was in reality seeking a shorter trade route to India. For centuries, Europe was eager to possess the Indian exports, silks, fine cloths of such sheerness as to deserve their descriptions, woven air and invisible mist, cotton prints, brocades, embroideries, rugs, cutlery, armor, ivory and ivory work, perfumes, incense, sandalwood, potteries, medicinal drugs, and unguents, indigo, rice spices, coral, gold, silver, pearls, rubies, emeralds, and diamonds. Portuguese and Indian merchants have recorded their awe at the fabulous magnificence throughout the empire of Vijayanagar, 1336 to 1565. The glory of its capital was described by the Arabian ambassador Razak as such that eye has not seen, nor has ear heard of any place to equal it on earth. In the 16th century, for the first time in her long history, India as a whole fell under non-Hindu rule. The Turkish Babar invaded the country in 1524 and founded a dynasty of Muslim kings. By settling in the ancient land, the new monarchs did not drain it of its riches. Weakened, however, by internal dissensions, wealthy India became the prey in the 17th century of several European nations. England finally emerged as the ruling power. India peacefully attained her independence on August 15, 1947. Like so many Indians, I have a now it can be told story. A group of young men whom I had known in college approached me during World War I and urged me to lead a revolutionary movement. I declined with these words: killing our English brothers cannot accomplish any good for India. Her freedom will not come through bullets, but through spiritual force. I then warned my friends that the arms-laden German ships on which they were depending would be intercepted by the British at Diamond Harbor, Bengal. The young men, however, went ahead with their plans, which proceeded to go awry in the manner I had foreseen. My friends were released from prison after a few years. Abandoning their belief in violence, several of them joined Gandhi's ideal political movement. In the end, they saw India's victory in a war won by peaceful means. The sad division of the land into India and Pakistan, and the short but bloody interlude that ensued in a few parts of the country, were caused by economic factors and not essentially by religious fanaticism, a minor reason often erroneously presented as a major one. Countless Hindus and Muslims, now as in the past, have lived side by side in amity. Men of both faiths in immense numbers became disciples of the creedless Master Kabir, 1450 to 1518, and to this day he has millions of followers, Kabir Panthas. Under the Muslim rule of Akbar the Great, the widest possible freedom of belief prevailed throughout India. Nor is there today any serious religious disharmony amongst 95% of the simple people. The real India, the India that could understand and follow a Mahatma Gandhi, is found not in the large restless cities, but in the peaceful 700,000 villages, where simple and just forms of self-government by panchayats, local councils, have been a feature of time immemorial. The problems that beset a newly freed India today will surely be solved in time by those great men whom India has never failed to produce. Okay. So that is a short history of the richest of Indies. Richest of the Indies. Okay. All right. Abundance, material as well as spiritual, is the structural expression of Rita, cosmic law or natural righteousness. There is no parsimony in the divine, nor in its goodness of phenomena, exuberant nature. The Hindu scriptures teach that man is attracted to this particular earth to learn more completely in each successive life the infinite ways in which the spirit may be expressed through and dominant over material conditions. East and West are learning this great truth in different ways and should gladly share with each other their discoveries. Beyond all doubt, it is pleasing to the Lord when his earth children struggle to attain a world civilization free from poverty, disease, and soul ignorance. Man's forgetfulness of his divine resources, the result of his misuse of free will, is the root cause of all other forms of suffering. Here's a footnote about the free will. Freely we serve because we freely love, as in our will to love or not. In this we stand or fall. And some are fallen to disobedience fallen, and so from heaven to deepest hell, O fall from what high state of bliss into what woe. Milton, Paradise Lost. The ills attributed to an anthropomorphic abstraction called society may be laid more realistically at the door of every man. Utopia must spring in the private bosom before it can flower in civic virtue, inner reforms leading naturally to outer ones. A man who has reformed himself will reform thousands. Here's a footnote about that every man. The plan of the divine lila, or sportive play, by which the phenomenal worlds have come into existence is one of reciprocity between creature and creator. The sole gift that man can offer to God is love. It suffices to call forth his overwhelming generosity. Ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, said the Lord of hosts. If I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Malachi chapter 3, verse 9 and 10. The time-tested scriptures of the world are one in essence, inspiring man on his upward journey. One of the happiest periods of my life is spent in dictating for Self-Realization magazine my interpretation of part of the New Testament. Fervently, I implored Christ to guide me in divining the true meaning of his words, many of which have been grievously misunderstood for 20 centuries. And here's a footnote about that. Paramahansa Yogananda's comprehensive interpretation of the four Gospels is published in book form by Self-Realization Fellowship entitled The Second Coming of Christ, the Resurrection of the Christ Within You, publisher's note. One night while I was engaged in silent prayer, my sitting room in the Encinitas Hermitage became filled with an opal blue light. I beheld the radiant form of the blessed Lord Jesus. A young man he seemed of about 25, with a sparse beard and mustache. His long black hair parted in the middle was haloed by a shimmering gold. His eyes were eternally wondrous. As I gazed, they were infinitely changing. With each divine transition in their expression, I intuitively understood the wisdom conveyed. In his glorious gaze, I felt the power that upholds the myriad worlds. The Holy Grail appeared at his mouth. It came down to my lips and then returned to Jesus. After a few moments, he uttered beautiful words, so personal in their nature that I keep them in my heart. I spent much time in 1950 and 51 at a tranquil retreat near the Mojave Desert in California. There, I translated the Bhagavad Gita and wrote a detailed documentary that presents the various paths of yoga. Here's a footnote about that. God talks with Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita, Royal Science of God Realization, published by Self-Realization Fellowship. The Bhagavad Gita is India's most beloved scripture. It consists of a dialogue between Lord Krishna, symbolizing spirit, and his disciple Arjuna, symbolizing the soul of the ideal devotee. Words of spiritual guidance that are timeless in their applicability by all truth seekers. The central message of the Gita is that man may win emancipation through the love of God, through love for God, wisdom and performance of right actions in a spirit of non-attachment. Okay, twice, and there's a footnote on twice. Bhagavad Gita, I guess you could say chapter 4, verse 29. I'm not sure how you read that. And chapter 5, verse 27, 28. twice, referring explicitly to a yogic technique, the only one mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and the same one that Babaji named simply Kriya Yoga. India's greatest scripture has thus offered practical as well as moral teaching. In the ocean of our dream world, the breath is the specific storm of delusion that produces the consciousness of individual waves, the forms of men and of all other material objects. Knowing that mere philosophical and ethical knowledge is insufficient to rouse man from his painful dream of separate existence. Lord Krishna pointed out the holy science by which the yogi may master his body and convert it at will into pure energy. The possibility of this yogic feat is not beyond the theoretical comprehension of modern scientists, pioneers in an atomic age. All matter has been proved to be reducible to energy. The Hindu scriptures extol the yogic science because it is employable by mankind in general. The mystery of breath, it is true, has occasionally been solved without the use of formal yoga techniques, as in the cases of non-Hindu mystics who possess transcendent powers of devotion to the Lord. Such Christian, Muslim, and other saints have indeed been observed in the breathless and motionless trance, Sabikalpa Satmahi, without which no man has entered the first stages of God perception. After a saint has reached Nirvikalpa, or the highest Satmahi, however, he is irrevocably established in the Lord, whether he be breathless or breathing, motionless or active. And here's a footnote about the Sabakalpa Samahi. See page 26. Among Christian mystics who have been observed in Sabikalpa Samahi may be mentioned Saint Teresa of Avila, whose body would become so immovably fixed that the astonished nuns in the convent were unable to alter her position or to rouse her to outward consciousness. Brother Lawrence, the 17th century Christian mystic, tells us his first glimpse of God realization came about by viewing a tree. Nearly all human beings have seen a tree. Few, alas, have thereby seen the tree's creator. Most men are utterly incapable of summoning those irresistible powers of devotion that are effortlessly possessed only by a few ekantans, single-hearted saints found in all religious paths, whether east or west. Yet the ordinary man is not therefore shut out from the possibility of divine communion. He needs for soul recollection no more than the Kriya Yoga technique, a daily observance of the moral precepts, and an ability to cry sincerely, Lord, I yearn to know thee. Here's a footnote about the ordinary man. The ordinary man must make a spiritual start somewhere, sometime. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, Lao Tzu observed. CF, I don't know what that means. Anyways, Lord Buddha, let no man think lightly of good, saying in his heart, it will not come nigh me. By the falling of water drops, a pot is filled. The wise man becomes full of good, even if he gather it little by little. The universal appeal of yoga is thus its approach to God through a daily usable scientific method, rather than through a devotional fervor that for the average man is beyond his emotional scope. Various great Jain teachers of India have been called Tirthakaras, fort makers, because they reveal the passage by which bewildered humanity may cross over and beyond the stormy seas of samsara, the karmic wheel, the recurrence of lives and deaths. Samsara, literally a flowing with the phenomenal flux, induces man to take the line of least resistance. Whosoever, therefore, will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. And that verse is from James chapter 4, verse 4. To become the friend of God, man must overcome the devils or evils of his own karma or actions that ever urge him to spineless acquiescence in the Mayic delusions of the world. A knowledge of the iron law of karma encourages the earnest seeker to find a way of final escape from its bonds. Because the karmic slavery of human beings is rooted in the desires of Maya, darkened minds, it is with the mind control that the yogic concerns himself. The various cloaks of karmic ignorance are laid away, and man views himself in his native essence. And here's a footnote about the mind control. Steadfast, a lamp burns sheltered from the wind. Such is the likeness of the yogi's mind, shut from sense storms and burning bright to heaven. When mind broods placid, soothed with holy want. When self contemplates self, and in itself hath comfort. When it knows the nameless joy beyond all scope of sense, revealed to soul, only to soul, and knowing wavers not, true to the farther truth. When holding this, it deems no other treasure comparable, but harbored there cannot be stirred or shook by any gravest grief. Call that state peace. That happy severance yoga. Call that man the perfect yogan. That's from Bhagavad Gita, 6, chapter 6, verse 19 to 23, Arnold translation. The mystery of life and death, whose solution is the only purpose of man's sojourn on earth, is intimately interwoven with breath. Breathlessness is deathlessness. Realizing this truth, the ancient rishis of India seized on the sole clue of the breath and developed a precise and rational science of breathlessness. Had India no other gift for the world, Kriya Yoga alone would suffice as a kingly offering. The Bible contains passages which reveal that the Hebrew prophets were well aware that God has made the breath to serve as the subtle link between body and soul. Genesis states, "The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." And that is from Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. The human body is composed of chemical and metallic substances that are also found in the dust of the ground. The flesh of man could never carry on activity nor manifest energy and motion were it not for the life currents transmitted by soul to body through the instrumentality in unenlightened men of the breath gaseous energy. The life currents operating in the human body as the fivefold prana or subtle life energies are an expression of the Om vibration of the omnipresent soul. The reflection, the verisimilitude, verisimilitude of life that shines in the fleshly cells of the soul's source is the only cause of man's attachment to his body. Obviously, he would not pay solicitous homage to a clod of clay. A human being falsely identifies himself with his physical form because the life currents from the soul are breath conveyed into the flesh with such intense power that man mistakes the effect for a cause and idolatrously imagines the body to have life of its own. Man's conscious state is an awareness of body and breath. His subconscious state, active in sleep, is associated with his mental and temporary separation from body and breath. His superconscious state is a freedom from the delusion that existence depends on body and breath. Here's a footnote on that. You never will enjoy the world aright till the sea itself floweth in your veins, till you are clothed with the heavens and crowned with the stars, and perceive yourself to be the sole heir of the whole world, and more than so, because men are in it, who are every one sole heirs as well as you, till you can sing and delight and rejoice in God as misers do in gold and kings in scepters, till you are as familiar with the ways of God in all ages as with your walk and table, till you are intimately acquainted with that shady nothing out of which the world was made. Thomas Traherne, Centuries of Meditations. God lives without breath. The soul made in his image becomes conscious of itself for the first time only during the breathless state. When the breath link between soul and body is severed by evolution and karma, the abrupt transition called death ensues. The physical cells revert to their natural powerlessness. For the Kriya Yogi, however, the breath link is severed at will by scientific wisdom, not by the rude intrusion of karmic necessity. Through actual experience, the yogi is already aware of his essential incorporeality, incorporeity, 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 and does not require the somewhat pointed hint given by death that man is badly advised to place his reliance on the physical body. Life by life, each man progresses at his own pace, be it ever so erratic, toward the goal of his own apotheosis. Death, no interruption in this onward sweep, simply offers man the more congenial environment of an astral world in which to purify his dross. Let not your heart be troubled. In my Father's house there are many mansions. And that's from John chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. It is indeed unlikely that God has exhausted his ingenuity in organizing this world, or that in the next world, he will offer nothing more challenging to our interest than the strumming of harps. Death is not a blotting out existence, a final escape from life, nor is death the door to immortality. He who has fled his self in earthly joys will not recapture it amidst the gossamer charms of an astral world. There he merely accumulates finer perceptions and more sensitive responses to the beautiful and the good, which are one. It is on the anvil of this gross earth that struggling man must hammer out the imperishable gold of spiritual identity. Bearing in his hand the hard-won golden treasure, as the sole acceptable gift to greedy death, a human being wins final wisdom from the rounds of physical reincarnation. For several years, I conducted classes in Encinitas and Los Angeles on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and other profound works of Hindu philosophy. Why did God ever join soul and body? A class student asked me one evening. What was his purpose in setting into initial motion this evolutionary drama of creation? Countless other men have posed such questions. Philosophers have sought in vain fully to answer them. Here's a picture of Yoganandaji welcomes Indian ambassador. The Indian ambassador to the United States, Mr. Binay Rajan Sen, with Sri Yogananda at Self-Realization Fellowship International Headquarters, Los Angeles, March 4th, 1952, 3 days before the passing of the great yogi. In a eulogy at the funeral on March 11, Ambassador Sen said, "If we had a man like Paramahansa Yogananda in the United Nations today, probably the world would be a better place than it is. To my knowledge, no one has worked more, has given more of himself to bind the peoples of India and America together." Here's a picture of them. I'll hold it there for a few moments. Okay. Leave a few mysteries to explore in eternity, Sri Yukteswar used to say with a smile. How could man's limited reasoning powers comprehend the inconceivable motives of the uncreated absolute? And there's a footnote about that. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. The rational faculty in man, tethered by the cause-effect principle of the phenomenal world, is baffled before the enigma of God, the beginningless, the uncaused. Nevertheless, though man's reason cannot fathom the riddles of creation, every mystery will ultimately be solved for the devotee by God himself. He who sincerely yearns for wisdom is content to start his search by humbly mastering a few simple ABCs of the divine schema, not demanding prematurely a precise mathematical graph of life's Einstein theory. No man hath seen God at any time, no mortal under time. The relativities of Maya can realize the infinite. Oh, so sorry. I missed a whole section of the previous footnote. So this is a footnote about the uncreated absolute. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Here's a continuation I missed. Sorry about that. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9. Dante testified in the Divine Comedy, I have been in that heaven, the most illumined, by light from him, and seen things which to utter he who returns hath neither skill nor knowledge. For as it nears the object of its yearning, our intellect is overwhelmed so deeply, it never can retrace the path it followed. But whatsoever of the holy kingdom was in the power of memory to treasure will be my theme until the song is ended. Okay, continuing. Let's retrace that. So, no man has seen God at any time, no mortal under time. The relativities of Maya can realize the infinite. And here's a, excuse me, a footnote on Maya. Take a drink of my tea here. Okay, the Earth's diurnal cycle from light to darkness and vice versa is a constant reminder to man of creation's involvement in Maya or oppositional states. The transitional or equilibrated periods of the day, dawn and dusk, are therefore considered auspicious for meditation. Rending the dual textured veil of Maya, the yogi perceives the transcendent unity. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, the reflected Christ consciousness or outwardly projected perfect intelligence, that guiding all structural phenomena through Aum vibration, has issued forth from the bosom or deeps of the uncreated divine in order to express the variety of unity. He hath declared, subjected to form, or manifested him. And that's from John chapter 1, verse 18. Verily, verily, I say unto you, Jesus explained, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doth the Son likewise. And that's from John chapter 5, verse 19. The threefold nature of God as he demonstrates himself in the phenomenal worlds is symbolized in Hindu scriptures as Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer, renovator. Their triune activities are ceaselessly displayed throughout vibratory creation. As the absolute is beyond the conceptual powers of man, the devout Hindu worships it in the august embodiment of the Trinity. Here's a footnote on that, a different conception from that of the Trinitarian reality. Sat, Tat, Om, or Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva represents the triune expression of God in the aspect of Tat, or Son, the Christ consciousness eminent in vibratory creation. The Shaktis, energies or consorts of the Trinity, are symbols of Aum, or the Holy Ghost, the sole causative force that upholds the cosmos through vibration. See page 163, note 216 note. The universal creative, preservative, destructive aspect of God, however, is not his ultimate or even his essential nature, for cosmic creation is only his Laila, creative sport. Here's a footnote on that. O Lord, thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. That's from Revelation chapter 4, verse 11. His intrinsicality cannot be grasped, even by grasping all the mysteries of the Trinity, because his outer nature, as manifested in the lawful atomic flux, merely expresses him without revealing him. The final nature of the Lord is known only when the Son ascends to the Father. And that's from John chapter 14, verse 12. The liberated man overpasses the vibratory realms and enters the vibrationless original. All great prophets have remained silent when requested to unveil the ultimate secrets. When Pilate asked, "What is truth?" That's from John chapter 18, verse 38. Christ made no reply. The large, ostentatious questions of intellectuals like Pilate seldom proceed from a burning spirit of inquiry. Such men speak rather with the empty arrogance that considers a lack of conviction about spiritual values to be a sign of open-mindedness. Here's a footnote on that. Love virtue, she alone is free. She can teach ye how to climb higher than the sphery chime. Or if virtue feeble were, heaven itself would stoop to her. Milton. Comus. Here's a picture of Paramahansa Yogananda, the last smile. A photograph taken an hour before his Mahasamahi, a yogi's final conscious exit from the body, at a banquet held in honor of Ambassador Binay Arsen of India, March 7, 1952, in Los Angeles, California. The photographer has here caught a loving smile that appears to be a farewell benediction for each one of the master's millions of friends, students, and disciples. The eyes that already were gazing into eternity are yet full of human warmth and understanding. Death had no power of disintegration over this incomparable devotee of God. His body manifested a phenomenal state of immutability. See page 548. Wow, this is just an hour before he left his body. That's incredible. He still looks very vibrant and healthy, doesn't he? Very interesting. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice. And that is from John chapter 18, verse 37. In these few words, Christ spoke volumes. A child of God bears witness by his life. He embodies truth. If he expounded also, that is generous redundancy. Truth is no theory, no speculative system of philosophy, no intellectual insight. Truth is exact correspondence with reality. For man, truth is unshakable knowledge of his real nature, his self as soul. Jesus, by every act and word of his life, proved that he knew the truth of his being, his source in God. Wholly identified with the omnipresent Christ consciousness, he could say with simple finality, "Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice." Buddha, too, refused to shed light on the metaphysical ultimates, dryly pointing out that man's few moments on earth are best employed in perfecting the moral nature. The Chinese mystic Lao Tzu rightly taught, "He who knows tells it not. He who tells knows it not. The final mysteries of God are not open to discussion. The decipherment of his secret code is an art that man cannot communicate to man. Here, the Lord alone is the teacher. Be still and know that I am God. That's from Psalms chapter 46, verse 10. The goal of the science of yoga is to obtain that necessary inner stillness by which one may truly know God. Never flaunting his omnipresence, the Lord is heard only in the immaculate silences. Reverberating throughout the universe as the creative Aum vibration, the primal sound instantly translates itself into intelligible words for the devotee in attunement. The divine purpose of creation, as far as man's reason can grasp it, is expounded in the Vedas. The rishis taught that each human being has been created by God as a soul that will uniquely manifest some special attribute of the infinite before resuming its absolute identity. All men endowed thus with a facet of divine individuality are equally dear to God. The wisdom garnered by India, the eldest brother among the nations, is a heritage of all mankind. Vedic truth, as all truth, belongs to the Lord and not to India. The rishis, whose minds were pure receptacles to receive the divine profundities of the Vedas, were members of the human race, born on this earth rather than on some other to serve humanity as a whole. Distinctions by race or nation are meaningless in the realm of truth, where the only qualification is spiritual fitness to receive. God is love. His plan for creation can be rooted only in love. Does not that simple thought, rather than erudite reasonings, offer solace to the human heart? Every saint who has penetrated to the core of reality has testified that a divine universal plan exists and that it is beautiful and full of joy. To the prophet Isaiah, God reveals his intentions in these words. So shall my word, creative Aum, be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. For ye shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth before you into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 11 and 12. Ye shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The men of a hard-pressed 20th century hear longingly that wondrous promise. The full truth within it is realizable by every devotee of God who strives manfully to repossess his divine heritage. The blessed role of Kriya Yoga in East and West has hardly more than just begun. May all men come to know that there exists a definite scientific technique of self-realization for the overcoming of all misery, of all human misery. In sending loving thought vibrations to the thousands of Kriya Yogis scattered like shining jewels over the earth, I often think gratefully, Lord, thou hast given this monk a large family. Paramahansa Yogananda, a yogi in life and death. Paramahansa Yogananda entered Mahasamahi, a yogi's final conscious exit from the body, in Los Angeles, California on March 7, 1952, after concluding his speech at a banquet held in honor of H.E. Banet R. Sen, ambassador of India. The great world teacher demonstrated the value of yoga scientific techniques for God realization, not only in life but in death. Weeks after his departure, his unchanged face shone with the divine luster of incorruptibility. Mr. Harry T. Rowe, Los Angeles Mortuary Director, Forest Lawn Memorial Park, in which the body of the great master is temporarily placed, sent Self-Realization Fellowship a notarized letter from which the following extracts are taken. The absence of any visual signs of decay in the dead body of Paramahansa Yogananda offers the most extraordinary case in our experience. No physical disintegration was visible in his body even 20 days after death. No indication of mold was visible on his skin. No visible desiccation, drying up, took place in the bodily tissues. This state of perfect preservation of a body is, so far as we know from mortuary annals, an unparalleled one. At the time of receiving Yogananda's body, the mortuary personnel expected to observe through the glass lid of the casket the usual progressive signs of bodily decay. Our astonishment increased as day followed day without bringing any visible change in the body under observation. Yogananda's body was apparently in a phenomenal state of immutability. No odor of decay emanated from his body at any time. The physical appearance of Yogananda on March 27th, just before the bronze cover of the casket was put into position, was the same as it had been on March 7th. He looked on March 27th as fresh and as unravaged by decay as he had looked on the night of his death. On March 27th, there was no reason to say that his body had suffered any visible physical disintegration at all. For these reasons, we state again that the case of Paramahansa Yogananda is unique in our experience. Here's a stamp dedicated to Paramahansa Yogananda. In 1977, on the 25th anniversary of the Mahasamahi of Paramahansa Yogananda, the government of India issued this commemorative stamp in his honor. With the stamp, the government published a descriptive leaflet which read, in part, in part, the ideal of love for God and service to humanity found full expression in the life of Paramahansa Yogananda. Though the major part of his life was spent outside of India, still, he takes his place among our great saints. His work continues to grow and shine ever more brightly, drawing people everywhere on the path of the pilgrimage of the spirit. And that is the end of chapter 49, also the end of the book. Now, the book has some appendices that I'm not going to go through, but I'll just flip through it really quick. And it talks about additional resources if you're interested in Kriya Yoga teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. And his main headquarters is in Los Angeles, San Rafael Avenue. And I'll leave it there for a moment if you guys are interested in the address and phone number if you want to contact them. And I'm sure you could find them on the website as well. So it's www.yogananda-srf.org. It's Self-Realization Fellowship, 3880 San Rafael Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90065. And the phone number is 323-225-2471. And then there are also lessons that you can ask about when you contact them at their headquarters. And then other books by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I won't go through it here. If you have the book, you can get on their website and look at it and buy it if you want to pursue their teachings a little bit more. And there are also audio recordings of Paramahansa Yogananda and other publications from the Self-Realization Fellowship. So these are all resources. And the line of gurus, which is the teachers, the lineage of teachers. And you can read that yourself. The aims and ideals of Self-Realization Fellowship, which is set forth by Paramahansa Yogananda, which is the founder. And you guys can read that. I won't read it. And then the index. So thank you so much for joining me with this journey. I really enjoyed the reading of the Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a very popular book, and it's the first time I've read from front to back. I started reading it and then I stopped. So it's very nice to read it all the way through. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll start a new book in next time. And hope you guys have a great month, a great week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye now.